Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Noxcast, your Equinox News Recap podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Hope. I'm the managing executive editor of the Equinox.
And I'm Chloe Erno, the news editor, and this week we're joined by Charlotte King, our webmaster.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. So we have quite a bit to get into this week, but first I'd like to give you the chance to sort of just talk about your role as webmaster, what you've been up to there, and then some of the stuff that you're also up to separately.
Yeah, no, Webmaster's been great so far. For anyone who might not have seen prior episodes or anything like that, I used to host this show because I was doing Nate's job for all of last year, last academic year. And then I entered my retirement, which was blissful in many ways. But now I run the KSC Equinox website, where you can find all of our news coverage just at your fingertips, in addition to the print paper that's at various locations all around campus. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I've been just like messing around with all kinds of like back end stuff, because dealing with all the content from week to week, you get pretty familiar with how sort of the design and appearance of the site works. But to get to like dig in there and find out like how it actually works is both very educational for me, because that's like not something that I have a ton of experience with prior. But it's also really cool because I get to like just continually make these improvements to try and like really put like a finer and finer point on the site and make sure it's the best it can possibly be. So like some recent projects I've worked on, I finally figured out a way to just put like a little widget on the side to link to our merch store. Shout out to our merch store. It is now on the front page of the website if you wanted to buy some merch. Who said that? Whoa. But that's super cool. I've been like messing around trying to make sure that like the images on that like go along with articles on all of our posts just look like better and better, and have like a good like flow content wise with the articles. Just all these like minute things that like nobody else would even like think to notice, but if you look at it, like, it's the kind of thing that your brain just like instinctively tells you. You go and look at it, and you can see that it looks nicer. So that's been very satisfying for me. And I'm looking forward to continuing to just like mess around with all those little things. But as Nate alluded to, I've also been doing some fill-in work, or if you've watched any of the episodes from this semester so far of the podcast, you've heard my name at the end, because I've been filling in as both copy editor and multimedia director. So copy editor, I'm basically, as I was also doing when I was managing, looking over every single, piece of text that we publish, to make sure that it adheres to Associated Press style, grammar, how we refer to everything, all the little nitpicky stuff, and, making sure that it's adhering to just what we're looking for in our reporting in terms of accuracy, avoiding bias, all that type of stuff. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to just stay really like in tune with what's going on. I feel like it's easy. It would be very easy for me as somebody who basically just has to like press the button and post the article to the website to just like totally, put myself out of the loop and like no longer know what we're publishing. But so that's been, really nice to still be like super connected to the pulse of what we do. And the multimedia is also really cool because when we started this show, I was the one editing it because at the time we didn't have a multimedia director, as we don't now. And so again, it's kind of like a return to form for me of like getting to go back in and be like, oh yeah, I've got all these like little elements that I like to be just so. It's kind of a control freak thing for me. I get to have everything just how I like it. But yeah, so busy stuff for me. But I will say, if you'd like to liberate me from any of that, you're free to apply for either the role of copy editor, of which we employ 2 on our e-board, or of multimedia director. If you're interested in knowing more about what either of those roles do, you can reach out to probably Nate at nhope@kscequinox.com. I'll put a thing there. Or you can go to the application that's linked at the bottom of our website. Look at that, the website. And that will have like a description in there as well. It's just like a Google form. It's super easy to fill out. But yeah, if you're interested, let us know. We'd love to talk it out with you and see if maybe, you're the person to again, free me from my many burdens.
Well, we appreciate you very much, and you've been a trooper so far this semester and very, very helpful. But yes, that is true. Multimedia is a huge aspect of what we do. There's, of course, the written articles and the photos, but video is a huge part. It's something that, some people don't immediately think of when they think of, student news. They think newspaper, but, in an online world, video is so important, and having the responsibility of editing Noxcast is definitely it's very important to us. But then at the same time, creating that video content, sort of that documentarian style-esque videos where you interview folks and gather B-roll, and we have done in the past event coverage for videos and sort of man on the street asking folks their opinion about various topics, or you could also do video coverage of like a news story where you just report like how you would a regular story, but on video interviews, video B-roll, all that stuff. I've done plenty of video stuff just for my classes, the journalism major, but it can be very gratifying, and we definitely do need some folks to not only just produce video, but also just take on that leadership role is also very important. And I can't say enough good things also about copy editing. It's the first role I had on the Equinox e-board. It was kind of my foot in the door of the whole thing. Even though it is one of our like more entry-level positions, it is so important to what we do. We have, we like to have 5 sets of eyes on things at all times. That's myself and my co-lead Tim, the executive editors, the section editor, and 2 copy editors. That way we have very minimal chance of making errors, certainly not frequently. And copy editors play a large part of that. And so that's why we've sort of had Charlotte stick on in the meantime, so that we can at least have 3 sets of eyes for now, or 4 sets of eyes with section editors. But it would be nice if we can go back to that 5 number. And so that's all I have to say about that for now. But please, if you're interested, look into it on our website. We have a lot of talented staff who I think would do very well, so think about it. But moving on from that and going into our regular recap, we're starting with news. And so we had a piece from our senior reporter, Ryan, which was a follow-up about President Melinda Treadwell's resignation. I covered the breaking news, just like a quick copy based on the email statement that she had sent to campus, but our senior reporter, Ryan, followed up with a more fleshed out story, talking to Treadwell, as well as some of, if not the first comments from University System of New Hampshire Chancellor Kathy Preventure, which is, massive news in terms of her view of the situation. But this is really sort of more picking at Melinda's brain in terms of, making the decision and reflecting on her tenure at Keene State. It's more in-depth and very vivid. I don't know. It's this way that Ryan, writes these stories. It's very just picturesque, and he did such a great job with this. I can't say enough nice things about it.
Yeah, and I was there when Ryan had his talk with Treadwell the other day, and I think that she was very emotional to leave, and that she was very respectful with the transition and talking to us about it. She mentioned possibly reaching back out to us at the Equinox when she goes to New York, because their program is more of a club than an actual major, and she might look into us to help expand that in the future. And I think that Ryan's coverage of the topic was also very great. He managed to talk to a lot of people that we would not have otherwise had the chance to talk to, and it was just all around a really solid article.
I mean, where would we be without Ryan? Not to harp on it too much, but I got a little choked up reading the beginning of that. I can't lie. Yeah, I think it's we've said it already in terms of just what a strange and a little bit of an uncertain time we're in. But yeah, it was really refreshing in a way to read President Treadwell's thoughts on just her time at Keene State and what that means and what she has hoped to what kind of impact she has hoped to leave. It's bittersweet, but definitely, like you said, Nate, I think being able to get those comments from the system level, from the USNH chancellor, is super important because the system is always going to be we're going to have to look to them as sort of the guiding ship here, as any institution under that umbrella will, because that's sort of the uniting factor, and that's the main uh, level of advocacy for public higher ed for New Hampshire when we were looking at relationships between that world of education and the world of the legislator. So being able to get that additional perspective, I think, really added a lot, fleshed out, what we know and what sort of the general feeling is on the topic. So really, really important.
Yeah, and this was also sort of, this goes along with our editorial discussion, which was about sort of just us reflecting on President Treadwell's tenure here at the college. Um, I don't want to sort of overlap too much with the discussion we had last week on Noxcast, but I will say it's just, from my personal experience, I came here in the fall of 2022, and I knew at the time that Treadwell had been here since 2017 as president, and I sort of just always had that feeling like that there was sort of that stability of leadership, and there was a sense of just transparency and, like we've said, civic engagement, and being very much a part of the community and responsive to students. I never really envisioned that I would see the day as a student that she resigned. So, again, this was shocking to all of us, but looking back now, and of course, President Treadwell still has a month left until she officially resigns and moves on to the presidency of SUNY Geneseo. But there's so much there, but we really wanted to hit on just that we hope whoever will succeed in her position of the president will embody those same values that she has, and someone who is so clearly compassionate and part of, wants to be seen, I guess, and sort of being such a strong leader, and leading the fight when it comes to higher ed and being a fierce advocate for the public liberal arts.
I agree, and I think that we're definitely going to miss her a lot at Keene, and that it's just such a bittersweet to see her go after all these years. And I'm only a sophomore. I've only been here for a year, and in that time, I felt seen and heard by Treadwell. I feel like that she's just a very confident leader, and she conveys herself very well to the students. And I think it's going to be very hard to replace her going forward.
Yeah, I do think, for people who are maybe just coming in as first years, or even prospective students, anything like that, you know, there's a lot of history for this college, and during Treadwell's tenure, that I think in our sort of reporting and the editorial and just everything that we've put out so far, we're trying to sort of illuminate in a way that gives some context to just how much she has dedicated herself to steering this institution through some really, really difficult times, and crises. I mean, through the COVID-19 pandemic and through some really dire financial straits, both then and now once again with this more recent wave of cuts, coming down from the state level, and the attacks on DEI, just everything that we're seeing now and everything that sort of unfolded uh, directly before and directly after she took on the role of at the time interim president. Um, it's been a real uh, it's been a real trial, and I can only imagine how difficult it's been at times. But yeah, I mean, I think the main sentiment, as I understood it from our editorial discussion, was just we are so appreciative of the work that she's done for the school, and now we're kind of looking ahead and saying, you know, as we feel kind of that uncertainty, we really hope that whoever is next up to take on that role of steering us through what is going to continue to be some pretty difficult times, both financially and, just with the sort of cultural elements that are at play there. Yeah, I really hope that whoever it is will be able to understand and learn from that successful tenure that President Treadwell has had and be able to embody that same level of integrity and honesty and dedication to the students that has characterized the past 8 years at Keene State.
Yeah, I mean, as corny as it might sound, I feel like something about Treadwell is that she never looked past the very human aspect when it came to, some of the cuts that had to be made. It's easy when you're facing a huge financial deficit and the crises of a public health, like a pandemic happening, to sort of just say what needs to be done to get us to where we need to be, make that happen right now as fast as possible, and that's that. I feel like, whenever we've relayed concerns to her, whether it just be about whatever we've said in our editorials. I know when I met with her, she always asked me about what we were talking about in terms of student concerns and things like that. I never felt like she wasn't listening. I always felt like she genuinely wanted to hear that. She wanted to know how she could help, even if there's some cases where she couldn't really help immediately or, in the way that might have been most beneficial. But I think that she's been such a great listener, and she always would reach out for those comments, which I think is a great quality to have of any leader, but definitely that of a college president was always appreciated. But I think it would be good to move on to our top story in region and state now, which was a piece from New Hampshire Public Radio about the Trump administration cutting academic support for more than 5,000 New Hampshire students. This was mainly targeted at the TRIO and the Gear Up programs, which are sort of college readiness programs for those in middle and high school who might be low income, potential first generation students, folks in basically disadvantaged groups who might have a harder time adjusting to college life or getting to where they need to be in terms of undergrad. So this was cuts that were done to those programs, and this is going to happen every episode, but another example of federal uncertainty and sort of what's next in terms of what's going to go. It's important to note that these programs are retaining partial funding. They weren't cut entirely. But this is definitely something that kind of makes you think, because, on campus we have a TRIO program that serves students locally. So there's kind of questions of how that might impact things over there. We haven't done reporting on that just yet, but I would say stay tuned because it will definitely be something to look at. But this article sort of just delves into what we know right now about those cuts and doesn't look the best just generally. And obviously, we kind of think that you should fund education adequately.
And as a worker at the Student Academic Support Services here at Keene, I've worked with the advisors at TRIO, and I've seen some of the worries about what this will mean going forward. I remember when Trump was first elected that there were concerns raised immediately afterward about what would happen in the future. And I think that it's just very concerning about how this might personally impact our school in the future. And it's something to look out for. And I just hope that it all works out. But with what's happening with education and budget cuts and taking funding away from public education recently, I don't have high hopes, but I'm hoping that something will come out to help.
Yeah, I mean, it topics like this are funny because we can only couch it so much before we are just like, we're all in college. Like, we believe in funding higher ed. Like, this is not some, like, you know, it just, the value is what it is, and that just is, like, sort of an apparent fact, I feel. And so it's infuriating to consistently see these targeted attacks coming down from the federal level to limit the access of who can receive an education. Because I mean, I'm not going to say that we should place any undue faith in the idea that American values as we all sort of learned them in grade school are true to what we say they are. But how is it anything other than antithetical to the American values of egalitarian liberty and allowing everybody to have an opportunity in this country, when we can turn around and say, these programs where we're allowing people who are are in a disadvantaged position, whatever that may look like, we still think they deserve an education. I mean, it's transparently saying that we think that because certain people come from a low income background, or because they fall into whatever line you want to draw around a group of people, we're saying you don't deserve to be educated, you don't deserve to have the chance to, lift yourself up and better yourself and have opportunities and be, live the life that we're all supposed to be able to attain. And it's the same thing as these cuts that we're seeing, or I should say these the legislation that has attacked DEI, where we've finally got to a point where we introduce programming and just an understanding of the fact that people are different, and sometimes those differences cause hardships because of just the way that stuff works historically, and the structures that we built around the ideas that were held hundreds of years ago. And so to directly target that is just openly opposed to the idea that everybody should have a fair shot. So I don't know, like, I have no clue what happens now with that, but it is infuriating.
Yeah, well said. I mean, it's it's bleak, to be honest. But it's people don't think about it a lot immediately when you think of DEI. I think it's become a thing where people either immediately think of just race or LGBTQ identities, which is a part of it, but also the disadvantaged communities, low income and people from first generation households and things like that. Those people are also part of DEI and sort of the initiatives meant to, like you said, give people a fair shot. And so feels attacking at the very foundation of some of those values that we were kind of brought up on early in our schooling. And so disappointing stuff, to say the least. But I will say, for the remainder of this episode, we have some less downbeat news to cover, so that's exciting. And I'll start that off with our student life top story, which came from our staffer, Noelle, who's been doing brilliant work when it comes to event coverage and just student life stories in general, so thank you. But she covered Campus Night Out, which is an annual event at Keene State put on by the Office of Campus Safety, where they bring together all sorts of first responders and some nonprofit associations, I believe. Just a bunch of different organizations to sort of talk about with students, what they do on a daily basis, some of the equipment and tools that they have at their disposal and what they do, and sort of just an educational event, a community outreach event. And I think it's good to, take any chance that you can to really show the community materially what you do for them and sort of being visible. I think that's, an important thing. And I think it's a good thing to strive for, regardless of what the department is. I think it's a nice event, and there's a lot of collaboration that goes on. So very exciting stuff, and also some great photos from our staffer Janet as well.
I agree. It was a very good article, and I think it's just important to educate college students about that stuff, especially with what we're seeing recently with violence on campuses and just schools in general. It's important to know where to go to if you feel unsafe or if you're worried something's about to happen. And I think that having them meet directly with first responders is also a very positive thing, to actually get to talk to and humanize the people who would be helping you in that situation. And I think it was just a very healthy and educational thing to have here on our campus.
Yeah, I'll double up first on the shout outs to our staff members because I can never resist the chance to do so. Noelle's been doing great stuff, like Nate said, really, really good coverage. Also, took the photos for the blood drive, and I just wanted to mention that because it's not often that we get people who take the photos, get the names, write the captions, send us the captions, ba 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 ba, and you don't have to do that. That is not a requirement by any means. But I was just like, wow, she is on it. And Janet too has been doing some really great photos recently. So yeah, firing on all cylinders all around. Anyway, the actual article. Yeah, I would also agree with what Nate said in terms of just the level of face-to-face interaction is a great way to kind of, I don't know. I think for a lot of people, and this goes along with what you said, Chloe, associate anybody who's going to be part of that sort of first responder space with, you associate that with really difficult situations because that's when you're most likely to interact with a paramedic or a firefighter is when something has gone wrong. And so I think that, having that face to face experience and being able to understand more on a human level, like who these people are, what do they do, why did they do it, is a good opportunity to just be really transparent and establish that connection with the community. So yeah, I think it's good to have the opportunity to get to know the people in your community who are there and waiting. If you should be in a situation where you need some help.
Right. Yeah. Um, that's pretty much. I think that covers a lot of what we had to say about that event. But again, just great job all around. And I feel like just overall we've had such a great group of staffers so far this year, and I've been really happy to work with everyone and just see the great stuff that everyone's putting out. But moving on to our top story in arts and entertainment, we have Administrative Executive Editor Tim's coverage of Splatter, which is a student band, their second concert at Birdie's on Main, which is a sort of small concert venue in downtown. This event I believe, had a record-breaking attendance. A lot of folks came out to that, and really just great coverage again. This is sort of continuation of a little like series or beat that I guess Tim is developing now with the previous coverage of the Stagnox and Blowflies concert at Nova Arts. So I was really happy to see that, and really amazing pictures from our staffer Jacob Friedman, and we had a really cool layout as well that arts and entertainment editor Haley worked on with a cool little font, and we bled it into the masthead there. So I encourage everyone to pick up a paper if they haven't already. But yeah, really great stuff all around here.
The article itself turned out absolutely gorgeous. It was so well done in layout. Haley did an amazing job. And the coverage was also fantastic. I think it's so nice to see both the Keene community and just the students in general band together for a fun activity. And I think it's just a very nice change of pace from the other stuff we've been covering lately, just to see this happy event with a band that the students can enjoy, that faculty and just Keene residents in general can enjoy, and that people can read and enjoy. So,
Dude, I love the layout for this. I was so hyped when I came into the office and saw what Haley was cooking with the font and sort of the lopsided. You got to check it out. Papers on the stands. But yeah, like I think it's so cool. I feel like around the same time that Birdies opened up was like also when Splatter started like really going hard with like performing live and like being really visible as a band. So I feel like it was kind of like it's kind of this like mutual thing that they got going on, especially with the fact that like that show they did was like record attendance for Birdies. So yeah, I don't like Chloe said it's cool to see sort of that mutual thing between like a business in just like Greater Keene and like this band that has this tie to the Keene State community. It feels like we're all kind of coming to support each other and just be a part of like some rock and roll. Uh, I think that's awesome. So I'm super hyped to see where Splatter's headed next. I thought it was cool they debuted a new original song. And yeah, again, I can never resist the chance. So huge shout out to everybody who worked on that article from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, this is just some of my favorite coverage from A&E that we do. Any sort of chance to highlight some of the great things that students are doing, whether it be a play or a musical production or just a concert. I think those are always so exciting to read and to see what folks are up to. So yeah, I was really happy to see that. But finishing off here, we have our sports top story, which was a piece that was done by our staffer Matt. So again, shout out for that. And we got some new graphics to go along with this as well. This is a sort of series of stories that we've been doing. It's called Best in the Nest, and this is highlighting folks that got weekly honors from the Little East Conference on campus. So we had 4 athletes recognized in the previous week for the amazing stuff that they've been doing on the field, which includes 2 players from women's soccer, Juliana Stolfi and Riley Andriski. And there was also a first-year women's golfer, Sadie Murray. And for the second week in a row, field hockey's Grace Bazin. So a few different sports there, and some more familiar names, but also some up-and-coming folks as well. So it was really nice to see that sort of diversity in the different areas, and the other 3 folks being seniors, but also first year, and so good mix. And I think fall sports have been off to a pretty decent start, just all around. So great story again, just highlighting some of the stuff that students are doing around campus, particularly student athletes in this case.
yeah, and not to sound like a broken record from the other week, but I think just highlighting students in general, and specifically calling them out is so incredible. Like what I said with the Blessing article, it's just nice to see them get the credit that they deserve for what they're doing and just calling out their big presence on campus. And especially with fall sports, we've seen lately that we're doing great this year. We're really pulling through. And we've spoken to the sports teams, and they're very happy with their performance as well. And I think it's just great. And I think that we're going to do a lot of great things going forward this fall.
Having 4 athletes from Keene State, receive this recognition in the span of a week is like crazy. That's so cool. And like athletics director Marty Testo said in the article, I think it's like really a reflection on just like how hard our athletes are going, like how much they're just like striving to be their best and like reach that level where they can get that amount of recognition. I also want to point out, like, and this is equally as much of a reflection on the LEC itself for making the picks, but I think it's really nice that like this is a highlight where all 4 of these athletes are from women's teams. Like I think that's super cool that we've got such like a strong and supportive athletics program where we're able to have that like level of spotlight for our women athletes, and be able to just like hold up that hold up the graphics. Shout out to art director Elijah, and be like like we have so many. It's so cool, and I'll sound like a broken record on the fact that shout out to our staff again. Matt did a great job with this article, being able to like get the perspective from all of the different athletes, all the different teams, and just like it's cool like how just across the board like everybody is like feeling it, like they are on it. So yeah, super cool stuff.
Yeah, definitely. It's awesome all around. And that brings us to the end of our recap for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in, whether it be on video or listening to the audio on various streaming platforms and on WKNH. To end off, I would like to extend a special shout out to the composer of the music for Noxcast, our very own Equinox alum, Zach Keenan, as well as the creator of the graphic for Noxcast, our art director, Elijah Fisher, and the editor of Noxcast for now, Charlotte.
You're welcome.
So until next time, thank you for watching. I've been Nathan Hope.
And I'm Chloe Erno.
And I'm Charlotte.
See you next week.